Now, moving on, we have a panel discussion that will surely grab the attention of the entire room. Now, yes, I'm talking about a much controversial topic today that all social media and digital media marketers would like to hear insights about. Should we use AI for content marketing? Ladies and gentlemen, get ready to find out all of your answers in this amazing panel discussion on the topic, to AI or not to AI for content. CEO experts share their research. Now, please help me welcome to the stage our panelists, Ms. Amanda Bernard, Chief Marketing Officer at One Click Technology Group, Mr. Ryan Brock, Chief Solution Officer at DemandJump, Ms. Catherine Montgomery, Founder and CEO of Better Together, and also, last but definitely not least, we have Arianna Lupi, I hope I pronounced it right, is CEO Consultant at aprendoseo. The stage is all yours, guys.
All right. Man, AI, right? Who here's on LinkedIn? Right? So we're all sick of this already. But here we are talking about it still. I think that's what makes this such an interesting panel for me anyway. As a moderator, I am personally talking about AI constantly and hating every moment of it. And that's why I'm so excited about this panel, because I know that the experts we have here are actually very nuanced and thoughtful people that are gonna say more than just do it or don't. And that's really what's important. We're getting to the stage now where the market's getting comfortable. We're looking at the actual impacts of AI, not just the suggested impacts of AI. So I am personally excited to lead a conversation here with these three wonderful, intelligent thought leaders and to just dive into AI specifically related to content, which is, I think, the real place where everyone looks and sees dollar signs and they see save time and they see all this, easy ways to the end. But in any case, I think before we really dive into the topic at hand, we should take a moment to introduce ourselves and share a little bit of our backgrounds and what gives us the right to sit on this stage. Because I believe this is the most fun topic as well as the most overwrought in digital marketing, because kind of nobody's an expert, right? Like, we're all figuring this out together. I don't know, Amanda, you might be a little bit of an expert on the technical side. You're impressive on that side, but you want to start us off and work our way down the line and introduce ourselves?
I'm Amanda Bernard. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer at One Click Technology Group. I've been doing digital marketing for over 14 years now. More specifically, we do quite a bit with AI, whether it's in the marketing end or even just playing around with it in terms of programming and seeing the code that it's producing. We also have been working closely with a couple clients building custom API integrations as well.
Great, yeah. I'm Catherine Montgomery. I'm the founder and CEO of Better Together. We're a full service communications firm that focuses on social impact. And I use AI every day throughout my workday. I think it has been a challenge for my employees in deciphering, do I just copy and paste what is in ChatGPT or do I put some thought into it? And so it's definitely a learning opportunity that's going to take a while for them to get used to, but it's a nice challenge, and I say embrace it and let's do it.
Also, as an aside, just because I said something nice about Amanda, Catherine, your logo is like the coolest logo I've ever seen in my life.
I mean, it's pretty good. It's pretty damn
Better
good.
Together. It's just so, I feel like it's like a hug or something, and I really appreciate that. I just want to say that.
Awesome. My name is Arianna. I was born and raised in Venezuela. I've been doing SEO for the past 6 or 7 years, more or less. And I'm an SEO consultant, and I also teach SEO in Spanish, so I have my own platform called aprendoseo. It's hard to pronounce. But my mission is to bring SEO to the Hispanic community, especially in Latin America, which there isn't that many resources in Spanish to learn SEO. So in terms of AI, since my SEO services or my expertise lies on content strategies and content research, I'd say I use it on a daily basis to create outlines, drafts, and overall like optimizations.
I am constantly overwhelmed by SEO, even though I consider myself an expert, and I'm only doing it in one language. So mad respect on the can of worms that opens up trying to move between those two worlds. That's awesome. So you've all heard me talk like 4 times this week. So I'm Ryan Brock. I'm the Chief Solution Officer at DemandJump. I owned a content agency for 10 years. I'm actually like all about the creative writer as a professional. So it's funny because AI is like the enemy kind of, but I love it. And I'm now actually in charge of product at a SaaS company that enables writers to do good work. So AI is a big part of my conversations every single day as well. Now, what we're going to do here is we're just going to sort of move through what I see as sort of a spectrum of the impact of AI on our lives. And I'd like to start by talking about not marketers and what we're doing as marketers and the tactics we might employ with AI, but actually begin the conversation with a little look at how our average consumer, or even just broader individual, is changing their behavior on the internet in the face of AI. So, Catherine, you mentioned that you've already been using AI in your daily life, and I know that you're not necessarily using it to just like produce content and do marketing. You're doing a lot with AI, it sounds like. So, can you walk us through a little bit of your life? Like, what changes have you already seen? Not that you're excited for, but you're already living in that future right now.
Yeah, like from my perspective as an agency or what my clients are doing.
I would like both of those perspectives. I think they'd both be really valuable.
Yeah. What I've started doing just on a daily basis with using AI when it comes to writing is I write the content myself. So I like to write an op-ed myself, and then I'll say, you know what, this could probably be better. And so what I've started to learn, especially with ChatGPT, is I'll say, ChatGPT, pretend like you're a Black woman who owns Better Together as a founder, and you focus on social impact. And then I copy and paste the op-ed into ChatGPT, and I say, make this better. And then it'll come back and it'll be awful. But there'll be some parts of it that I'm like, oh, that's really good. Like I can take that and replace it. And so it's like I take my original copy and add something to it, add some flair to it that I wouldn't have thought of. I think the key is that I can't just start from nothing, because if I do, it's not going to be anywhere near my voice. It's not going to be anything of what like a client would want. And so like say it is a client who I'm working with, I would say pretend like you're Laura Crandon, who works with Touch for Life, and I'll put a link to her website so they have background on the website, and then I'll put the op-ed or whatever piece it is and say, make this better. And so it's not, for me, it can't be just a blank page, really. It has to start from somewhere or it'll be totally off point. I think from a client's perspective, they really have not embraced AI. They really lean to us for the expertise, and they haven't been like, oh, I can just write this myself. I can just do this myself. I think they kind of know that AI won't give them what they need, and it takes really having a partnership and a relationship and bond to write content that reflects their mission and goals.
Interesting. Arianna, I'm going to shift to you now. What about like the way people consume information? Let's forget we're marketers for a moment. Do you see in your interactions with just the world, are there already changes in the way people use search engines, the way people go find answers to their questions? Like, is this as big of a change as we think, or do you think there's still a long way to go before the general populace is ready to like ask a robot a question rather than an algorithm?
So I think people are starting to adapt to ask questions with AI. Like instead of it's a very, in my opinion, it's a very small percentage of people are replacing search engines with actual AI platforms. But I think the types of questions and the types of queries or keywords that are being replaced are more like long-ended questions, like how to do this, or give me 5 steps. For example, I did ask ChatGPT a few weeks ago to create like a meal plan for me. So that's a query that might take traffic from search engines and blog posts, etc., to the AI. So I think that like those types of questions are being replaced. However, there's tons of other like questions, concerns, or queries more like in the middle of the funnel or bottom of the funnel that I don't think they can be replaced, because it takes, there's a lot of information, or like, for example, products or reviews that AI will be extremely biased or won't have the answers to those things. So in that sense, I think people are we have to adapt to more like a hybrid of how people are searching for things, where would they search for specific things. If it's a product or a service, they might use search engines if it's a question. And also in terms of like search engines, I think the way people are expecting to get results are not like blue links and written text anymore. I think like we as marketers and SEOs, we need to adapt. Like, is it more like videos, infographics, and it's more like a holistic approach to SEO rather than just like blog posts and written text.
Mm-hmm. Mm. There are like 5 things I want to double click on in there. But before we go any further on any of those pathways, Amanda, I want to come back to you because you're in a unique position as a digital marketer, but also as someone who works for an organization that empowers people to customize AI and use it in very specific ways. What are you seeing? Like from a business standpoint, we talked about consumers, we talked about marketers. From a business standpoint, like what is your organization seeing out there? People are obviously early adopters jumping right on AI. What are they doing with it?
I mean, literally everything. There's no one thing that they're developing. Every day, you can go on and see the latest AI tech that some software company has developed. But what excites me more is what the smaller companies are doing and how they're really approaching it so that they're targeting their actual clients more. A lot of our clients still are super scared of it though. But also they're super scared of their own computers. So you can't really change that overnight.
How are they targeting their customers, like using AI?
I mean, you're taking huge data sets, you're drilling it down. You can pretty much segment however you want now, and it's just that micro targeting.
So what's interesting about that is I think we think about big data and we think about content as kind of 2 different things, but we're starting to get to a point where the lines are being blurred, where all of this is in an effort so that we can create better messaging, talk to the right people with content, whether that content's a long form blog post, a video, customer service message. We're just trying to cut through the noise, and AI seems to be a really good fit for that.
Yes.
So then what are the risks? Let's go there. I like to talk crap about AI and beat on it a little bit. It's strong enough. It needs to be taken down a peg, in my opinion. What are the risks? Like we're all getting ready to jump in and do this. We've all been playing around with AI. What have you seen? Like have you, any of you, and I'll open this up to all of you, where have you run into something where you're like, I don't know about that. That seems a little bit risky to me.
I think the funniest part is when people are using it and then not checking their actual content, and then you still see the prompt in their content that they just blasted out. So
Outstanding.
prompt, like, act as Catherine and tell me about something. And then it's right there. So that's great.
I had Bard tell me recently that I won an award that I've never won.
Oh, nice.
I thought the easiest way to check if Bard was smart was to ask it about myself. And it seems to be like, listen, whatever the top 5 results say about anyone named Ryan, I'm just going to spout right back to you. But I did end up using that content, promoting it everywhere, just because if the AI thinks I won an award, I feel like I deserve that award.
Wait, so you acted like you won it?
No, that was a joke.
Okay.
That does seem to be the level of criticism people are taking with this output, right?
I had a situation with headshots. So everybody was getting headshots done by AI. And I was like, well, it seems like, $49, get 200 headshots, that'd be great. and then I didn't notice any people of color on the website. And so I emailed the creator of the app, and he's like, oh yeah, we forgot to put Black people on the website. Oops. And then 2 minutes later, they put this one guy on there. But I was like, it doesn't even look real, So I feel like it's really taking time for them to, recognize other features.
Did you try buying it? See what?
No. You would need to do that for free.
Well, there's another risk. I still want to stay on risk, but we have a question on here that's like too perfect as a jumping off point from there. It seems to me, I don't think we need to get political here, but it seems to me that if the goal of an AI is to find the consensus viewpoint on any topic and put it out there, the likelihood of the person who wrote that consensus viewpoint looking like me is pretty strong. So what's going on there? I mean, have you seen, any of you, but Catherine, I know that like this is something that we've talked about a little bit. Have we seen problems there where their bias is there and even risk for amplifying voices above others in a really disadvantageous way?
Yeah.
Are we seeing that with AI?
I think that's why I have to start with content, especially for my clients that are focused on social impact. So when it comes to political topics like gun control and affirmative action and things like that, I have to put the content in there first, or it is going to come up with something that's ridiculous, and I'm not going to be able to use it. So I do think that it's learning. Like the more we use it, the more it's going to learn, the more diverse it's going to be. But you have to be very, very diligent and smart about knowing what to accept and what not to accept. So I do think it's very biased. But it does help with cleaning up your writing. So you have to give and take with it a little bit. Anyone else?
So bias in AI has been around for quite some time. But with ChatGPT, you can at least start training some of that away. I'm not saying it's all going to go away, because like Ryan said, most of the content has been written by white males. But there's ways to augment that a little bit. You're still going to have to go over it with a fine-tooth comb, because it's still going to be God knows what. But at least it's learning more.
Yeah.
And more efficiently than when Google had the Twitter that got shut down within a day. The Google
the Microsoft one?
Microsoft, my bad.
That was train wreck. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, I want to follow up on something you just said, because I love the technical angle that you come from here, because it's the opposite of mine. But like you said that there's been bias in AI for years. Can you give examples? Like it feels like AI just happened 5 minutes ago. So
Well, so facial recognition software has been around for decades. There's studies from MIT that have shown that the facial recognition software, number one, really only works for white males. Then going down the list, it's white women, and then it's lighter colored African American women, and then it's just nothing. You're lucky if you even get picked up. There's a great documentary that was on Netflix about it as well.
Yeah, but it's been so long, so why is it taking so long to correct?
yeah,
That's the developers.
it seems like
Yes.
it's a volume issue, right? Like it's so much easier to just take unreviewed, unanalyzed data sets and just use them as learning models. And at the end of the day, if people aren't being critical, then yeah, it's going to just default to whatever the default has been. And I think that's interesting, because we're talking a lot about AI as if it is somehow intelligent. And it's only as good as what's put into it. It's only as good as what it has available.
Yeah.
Even if it has up-to-date information available, it still starts handing out awards to people who don't deserve them, right? So it's really important that we think about, when we ask it for help with something, what the absolute outer limits are of its ability to answer that question. Because sometimes it can answer the question in a way that feels very confident. Like, I'm the kind of guy, I got a confidence that can make it sound like I know what I'm talking about anytime. And I only do about 25% of the time. And I think that's true for AI as well, probably because it was trained on white men like me.
Truth.
When we're writing our content, I mean, isn't the point to not have to try so hard when we're writing AI content? Like, isn't that the point? Arianna, I'm gonna pick on you. Like, do I really need to be critical, or can't I just rely on this to do my job for me?
No,
that was a really softball question for the record.
I don't think we can rely at all. Adding up, I think it's not only like it's picking up the responses from the content that's created by white men, but also like the algorithms most of the time and the programs are created by also like white men. So I think that's something we have to consider. And I wanted to add, like, follow up, like how can maybe understand which ways can we report these answers, or how can we besides like just training our own like data, I'm not sure how we can like report things in the different platforms, or if that gets anywhere. I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I know that I have been able to report and flag information as incorrect. Whether they do anything with it, I'm not sure. But I did cut you off, Amanda, from talking about training your own AI.
Oh.
So can you talk a little bit about that? Like, what, I mean, can I just do that, or what is the process there?
So it depends on the platform that you're using. In ChatGPT 3, it's a little bit more difficult. We use some platforms that help with that, including Buildable. But if you have a great programmer that's on staff, they can really help you with all the technicals
So
of
if
it.
you have development resources on your team, it is worth looking into what it would take to
Yes, absolutely.
sort of smarten up your specific
And they're
instance.
diverse, like the developers, are they diverse people, backgrounds, ages?
No.
So-
But, I mean, most developers, at least in Northeast Ohio, are in that same white male, likes video games.
Yeah, so I guess
normal
it's
developer.
like you need to be aware of the bias that you can have, and even if you are a white male, as long as you know, hey, I'm probably being biased, I should.
Well, it
ask
seems to me
someone.
that like AI is no different than any one of us at the end of the day, right? Like if I think just because I am a white male, for example, and I want to say that we had a fifth panelist who was going to be the moderator, we specifically didn't want the one white male to be moderating this panel. I recognize the irony in this, but
We
kinda
chose you. We chose you, by
Yeah,
the way.
they forced me to do
Right.
this.
Yeah.
But like, that doesn't mean that I go out there and just say my perspective is the only one that matters. And in fact, any business that's good at communication, good at content, good at marketing, whether we're talking about those kinds of topics or just your industry and expertise and the technical aspects of what you do, it requires expertise to produce good content. And so the notion that you can just take something off the shelf, just like you couldn't take a writer off the shelf who has no idea what your industry is, no idea who your audiences are, and expect great things, you really can't do that. I mean, this is a powerful, powerful tool, but it's only as good as the input that it gives. So along those lines, I'd like to talk about prompting, because I think prompting ends up playing a big role in how we control the output that we get. I've heard a few of you mention pretend to be this. Is that your go-to? Is that how you start? Like, Catherine, is that how you start usually?
Yeah. Actually, I'm pretty new to prompts. I didn't even know that it was a thing until pretty recently. And I can tell a difference between, saying be this expert and be this expert or whatever, like the difference in tone. Sometimes it does say, if I say, pretend to be a Black woman, it'll say, as a Black woman, like in the right. And that's like not what I meant for you to do.
Bush League.
So it works sometimes. I think, again, it's something that it's learning to do, but there are lots of prompts. And I think that's a helpful place to start rather than just from scratch or like any person, But if it's a white male being a Black woman, then I don't really know that it's helpful.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever written the words as a Black woman, but
Something I've done sometimes for clients that have specific like tone of voice or values, I just, remind, like within the prompt, usually doesn't work for me if I keep, for example, on ChatGPT, the same chat, it doesn't usually pick it up. I have to remind, remember, the values are like this, the tone of voice is this, and usually like maybe 5 times better. But most of the time, it takes a lot of editing at the end. But at least like reminding, what's the tone, what are the values, and what's the goal. Like I like to add the goal in the prompt, like write this with this goal. Not only like write this in X amount of characters, but also like adding the goal, I think helps it understand, where this is going.
yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And for the record, I don't find myself ever really using GPT or any other AI to write content. I think it's pretty well established at this point based on everything we're saying that like wholesale, that's not enough. And a lot of people will use it to get started and work from there. And that's, I think, a very good way of going about it. For me, when I think about prompting, the prompts that I've arrived at are really, really hyper-focused. The things that take me the most time when I'm writing content it's just research. It's just finding that golden nugget that I want. If you're a scientist, I understand that what I'm saying is the opposite of like true science. Like finding the quote that matches my theory is not necessarily but I'm a writer and I got stuff to do, right? Like if I've got a job to accomplish, I know that if I'm writing about marketing, that I could probably find a really good stat on whatever my topic is in a HubSpot report or in a LinkedIn report or whatever. Yesterday, in my presentation that I gave, I had a stat on screen about how like 43% of marketers don't ever check the ROI on their content. I could have taken 30 minutes to find that, or I can go to GPT and say, hey, do you have any statistics on how marketers think about ROI in content? And I found that it's actually really, really good at that. When I ask for a specific, I try to stay as broad as I can while being specific on the kind of stat I'm looking for. And I'll generally get something useful. And I found that that is a really nice shortcut in the creative process for content to save me some time and get something done a lot faster. Do you all have any like silver bullets like that?
Do you double check the stats?
Oh yeah, what I do is I demand a source and then I go to the source and I review it. So they'll never share the source at first, but if you ask for it, then it'll provide it. And if you can't provide it, then it probably made it up.
Yeah, okay.
But do any of you have any of those silver bullets? Like, yeah, here's a good prompt that I could just take and it's gonna make my content job easier?
Yeah. So I have a couple that, depending on what it is, if it's a social post, I'm the first to admit I hate social media. So the fact of having to ever do it is like the worst for me. So I use it a lot for that because I just don't like it. And it's great for the hashtag research because that's so time consuming. So I do have a really great one that I just copy and paste and change a couple things and then go.
Well, what is it?
Well, so I normally start out as, like, let's say I was doing it for one click. You're Amanda Bernard from One Click Technology Group. We are a holistic web development and marketing agency. I don't have the exact wording in front of me, so I'm trying to. You just put out this blog post about X, write it, one for LinkedIn with a serious undertone, one for Facebook with a fun undertone, and one for Instagram that's just silly. Go.
That's good.
I like it.
I think my biggest use case for SEO, coming up with like frequently asked questions or to have like this FAQ schema. Frequently asked questions and outlines, like I request outlines sometimes with specific like headings, hierarchy, and meta titles, and like in bulk. That will be it.
That's super helpful.
Yeah. You did mention not just copying and pasting the content. I have had instances where job candidates have submitted writing tests that they've done completely on ChatGPT, and I can tell as soon as I start reading it that they copied and pasted. And I'll put it in ChatGPT and say, "Did you write this?" And they're like, "Yes, I did write it." And then I go back, then I go back to the candidate, and I'm like, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe ChatGPT is wrong, but it seems that this was copied and pasted. And some are like, "Oh, I'm so offended." And then some are like, "Yeah, I did." But it's just so crazy. You really cannot just copy and paste. You have to use prompts. You have to be authentic or genuine or unique or something when it comes to AI.
So what's the difference? What's the difference between copying and pasting and actually using it to an end? I mean, I guess the question that I'd like to ask is, do any of you feel like your human creativity is at risk here?
No.
No,
I'd
not
say
at all.
no. I have a list. I have a list for SEO things that AI can't do properly. For example, okay, we've talked about content, but we haven't touched, for example, like internal linking or anchor text. Yeah, like optimizing anchor text or the strategic part of it. So to an extent, you can use AI to assist like the content writing process. But for example, like heading hierarchy, internal linking, navigation structure, even like backlinks, like that's like an email back and forth. Like even if you automate that process, you can't get it done. So there's a few things that you can get assistance from, but not necessarily like completely, at some point I thought my job was at risk, like when the hype happened, like December, January, I'm like, okay, I'm done. But then later, like learning how to use it and learning, what I can do and when I can't, I don't think by like 100% it won't replace us, but I think we do have to learn how to use it for assistance, because the competition is going to like get over and use it as well.
Yeah, something that I've found myself saying quite a lot is that all of my math teachers when I was in school were idiots. Mostly because I hate math, but also partly because they all told me I wouldn't have a calculator available to me at all times. And of course they were wrong. But more than that, I have Excel. Like I got like pivot tables. Like what I need to do, I don't need to think about ever. But it doesn't necessarily mean just because I have a calculator or you have a calculator that I'm going to suddenly be able to become like a Nobel Award-winning physicist, or I'm going to be able to make some amazing discovery out there in the stars. Like the tool itself is not an advantage. And I feel like right now, there is an advantage to be had at leveraging AI properly, but in a long enough time frame, that AI is not in and of itself like a competitive advantage, like you said. Like everybody's going to be using it, so now it's a question for me about like how do I get rid of the boring parts of telling the story so that I can focus on the creative parts, because that's where that Nobel Prize-winning work happens.
Yeah.
No, I completely agree. There's so many other skills that come into writing. Coming up with the ideas, putting in the right order, editing, sharing, who you share it with. There's just so many elements to it that an AI tool can't do all at once. It takes human beings, it takes original thought. And so I definitely don't see our jobs going anywhere.
Yeah. I mean, like you said,
I agree.
And I think my world that I live in is organic content. So more than anything, like I think it's super important for people to understand that notion of if everybody's doing it, it's not an advantage. It's super, super real when it comes to SEO. Google went from don't do it to, okay, you're gonna do it. So like if you're gonna do it, make sure you're doing it to help you produce really great, helpful, insightful content. And I think that is basically them saying don't do it unless you're doing it for the right reasons. Like a lot of people out there who want to use GPT to just replace the writing process are going to find that like if Google's job is to figure out who is the most authoritative source on the topic, GPT is not the most authoritative source on that topic, right? Like you will not deserve position one in the traffic that comes with it if you're just trying to shortcut the game and just get to the end and win. But if you are a thought leader, if you have perspective, if your organization can actually provide solutions through even organic content before you're selling anything, and GPT can get you more efficient, can help you do it at a greater scale or a faster clip, you're probably gonna have a competitive advantage there, especially right now.
I think it's going to be like harder for us to compete with everyone because if we're all going to be doing the same things, it's going to be hard. But if we do it like 10 times better, as you said, like adding like authority, like really creating actual value beyond what GPT or any AI tools giving us, I think it's going to be worth, it's going to be 10 times harder after AI. But if you do it like 100 times better than everyone else, you're going to get probably like 1,000 times the result. So I think Google's going to reward whoever creates valuable content, besides if it's like from AI or not, like what actually brings value, and I think the focus is going to be a lot on authorship, like who is creating this? Has this person created like other articles? What's more or less the voice or the expertise that this person has? So I'm predicting like Google's going to take a closer look on authorship, because if not, everyone's going to be an expert on everything, and that's like goes against what Google wants when people
and
have
I think
experience.
that's what they do now, right? It's like who writes it, the content, the keywords you're using.
The extra E sort of represents this. Like, are you an actual expert on this or not?
Right.
Do you have experience on this or not? Yeah.
Yeah, but I think those not using AI are going to be really, 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 really behind, and they're going to lose. You have to embrace it and figure out how to like adapt it and make it your own. But if you don't, I mean, people are just going to surpass you, I think.
It's like refusing to use a calculator.
Right.
Or being made
Not that
to
I know how to
not
use
use a
one.
calculator on a math test when you just have a perfectly good calculator sitting right there.
I still don't know how to use mine.
Oh yeah, I don't know how to use a calculator at all. So it wouldn't help me pass a math test even if I tried. To that end, and in the spirit of leaving time for some questions here, let's wrap up our discussion. Maybe, Amanda, we'll start with you. We'll work our way down the line, not to put you all on the spot, but we've talked about GPT like 4,000 times. I've heard Bard come out of my own mouth. Are there any other AI content tools that you're using that you can recommend to our audience here that can help them?
So I use Buildable AI. But I also have a couple other programs that are more internal use for the company. And then just Dolly, Midjourney, the normal players.
Beautiful.io is really good for making slides. And Jasper is really good at content as well. So I think those are two I use pretty often.
I've been using Copy AI. It's great, like copy headlines. There's one called Tommy app. Creates like slides. You just add a topic and I can add up from there. And I've been trying Jasper the past week as well. Pretty good for like social posts, etc.
I've been having a lot of fun with the Photoshop beta, if you use Adobe. The generative fill is like actually pretty good, especially if you're trying to do something simple. It takes, I know how to use Photoshop, I've been doing it for years, but it's still sort of a pain sometimes to like clip a subject and take, remove the background, do these things. These things are like a click with Photoshop, which I love. And then there's two other tools that I use, Descript, which is a video editing software, really, really powerful stuff. It takes your raw video, auto-generates a transcript, and then you can edit the video by editing the text. You like literally just edit the text, and you could even record your voice and create or whoever the speaker's voice is, and create an audio mimic of yourself. So like you could, if you need to replace or rewrite some part of your video, you could throw some B-roll on and then have yourself continue talking and read lines that you never read, which is really fun. And then Casted is a podcast platform that parses audio content and helps you make clips of it and generate automatic little snippets of content to use in social media and stuff like that. So if you're like me and you've got like way too much podcast footage to do anything with and you want to reuse it, it's a really good tool. My clock says 13 minutes, but I think I saw that we only have like no minutes. Where are we at?
I don't think he said it.
We have 13? Yeah. Cool. All right, I thought I saw you doing this, so I just wanted to make sure. That was what I hoped, that we would have time for some questions, because I think that this is a topic a lot of people have questions about. So unless any of you have any final words, I'd like to open it up for...
I will just say futurepedia.com is really good. So it is a place where they have all of the different AI tools in one place. So instead of like an encyclopedia, it's Futurepedia, and it's very, very, very helpful also.
Cool.
Okay.
All right, questions then. What you got? We got a mic coming. Hold on, I'm deaf.
Thank you. You were talking about that video AI, but I didn't catch the name of the one that you were talking about.
Descript. Descript, like description without the I on at the end.
Thank you.
Yellow. I think that's yellow.
Hi, thank you. So I was wondering if you used the ChatGPT to come up with key phrases for optimizing discoverability on web pages, and also if the copy that you used the ChatGPT for is better in terms of being picked up in search engine queries.
I'll start. Because I am the solution officer for an SEO research tool, I absolutely do not use GPT for keyword research, but I also know why, and it's because like There's a difference between GPT's suggestion and the actual search behavior data that like I review when I'm building a plan. And at the same time, I think the plausibility of AI-generated copy one-to-one just being rankable is pretty low. Like, I think it's a good starting point. I think if you know what you want to write about, or you need at least some inspiration, you can start there and you can begin asking questions like, what do I need to talk about in order to get to page 1? Or what are the other articles on page 1 not talking about that I could cover? Where are the gaps in the coverage? I think like if you start getting a little bit more tactical like that, it can be really, really helpful. But I don't know if anyone else has experience here.
So I don't use it at all for keyword research. It does, what the output that I've gotten doesn't give the insights that I need. And then I wouldn't just take any article that it pushes and put it out there, because everything still needs massaged. We've had some really good success with articles that we've used the outlines that we've generated, but nothing that has been just without human input, human really tweaking the whole thing.
I have used it to get like evergreen keyword ideas. I've used it in two instances. If I want to get like evergreen keyword ideas, just to get an idea of within a cluster, what content can be created. The volume that shows is not always accurate, of course, but at least I get an idea, more or less where I can go within this topic. And then if I already did like a keyword research and have like my set of keywords, if I want to see if I'm like not seeing something, I might ask like the AI or ChatGPT like which keyword am I missing, or if there's anything else, just to make sure I'm covering everything. However, about like titles, like meta titles, H1s, I've tried probably like 100 times getting something good. It's never good. Like usually it's like either like super creative or romantic. It has nothing to do with the search intent. I asked like multiple times, make it optimized for the keyword, and then the keywords like at the end, they change everything. So my experience with headlines or like titles, H1s, it's been terrible, but for keyword research, you might use it as assistance or just to get an idea of what you can write or create around.
I thought that it would be helpful for meta descriptions. So that was the first thing I tried from a generative standpoint. And one thing that's really weird that I found, and I'm talking, when I say it, I mean GPT, even GPT-4, I would be like, this needs to be roughly like, give me like 130 characters. And then it like doesn't know what that means. Like it'll give me like 500 or it'll give me 200 and I'll be like, no, that was the wrong amount. And it'll be like, no, it's not. And it literally will tell me like the wrong count.
Yeah.
And so it's weird that there are some seemingly very bizarre limitations to it that extend beyond like SEO sensitivities.
In terms of prompting, if you give it a word count, just the
word is
word
better than
count,
character. Yeah.
I can get something.
See, I do that and it doesn't work for me.
But anything with character count is just.
Oh, is it a character count?
Yeah.
I've also asked it to write like content of a certain length to see what it's capable of, and it generally taps out around like 600 words. If I try to go any longer than that, it struggles usually, even if I give it a really long keyword list or whatever.
I haven't had that.
Yeah, it's mostly
Like if
I
say
wanted it to
800
lose,
words,
so maybe I wasn't
it's like
helping it that much.
825. But yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Good questions. Any other questions?
So you talked about building custom models, and this is in reference to removing bias and future-proofing, because ChatGPT's data set, I think, ends at 2021. So what is the value of staying relevant using this technology, right? And creating something that's tailored to your organization, your flavor, your branding. Can you touch on that?
Yeah, I mean, you can add in links. So although it's older content, if you put in a website or an article or something that's newer, it can take that information and create content from it. So like with affirmative action ruling, you can put in, oh, the Supreme Court decided on this was the case. Can you write a statement for my client that works at X, Y, and Z, put their link in as well. And so that way it's kind of learning new information. So definitely can be, more recent.
I mean, if you were talking actually building something more custom, that would be more of a discussion with the programmers and developers that you have on staff rather than with the marketing team, though. But they can absolutely do that kind of stuff, most developers.
Ostensibly, Amanda, like you've seen, or at least on the fringe, you've seen customers of your organization who have said, we're going to take a vanilla off-the-shelf version of some AI tool, we're going to give it some custom training in our data, and that, is that helpful? Is that worthwhile?
I think it is.
Okay.
But a lot of customers don't see the value in that yet.
Because I want it to just work like a magic
leery.
wand. I don't want to have to
Yeah.
do anything with it, right?
Yeah.
So does Google recognize when an article's been written by ChatGPT and are devaluing that content? And if so, what value does it really have for you as a marketer?
Yes, they are, but not necessarily. They know, but they're not necessarily killing. I've got a few data points on this. Number one, Neil Patel decided, I think it was a couple of years ago, to build 100 domains, 100 websites using AI-generated content. So again, this has been out for longer than the last 6 months, but over the last, I think it was last year that he really started populating these domains. 50 of them, he just took the output from AI and put it on the domain. The other 50, he edited the way that we're talking about editing content. When the spam update came out in, I think, November of last year, this was like the first real significant AI-related Google algorithm update that came out. Overnight, the edited sites saw about a 7% decrease in traffic. The unedited sites that were just pure AI was about 17%. That doesn't sound like a lot, but trust me, my CMO would have a freaking heart attack if 17% of our traffic dropped off out of nowhere. So it's a significant amount. Rankings dropped by a significant number of positions as well. And at the time, Google was saying, we're watching. And actually, since that point, there have been like college students on the weekend building algorithms that can detect AI-written content. So what we don't really know as consumers if there are, some people are calling them like invisible watermarks, something in the way it's written that it's just easily detectable by the right algorithm. But regardless of how Google's picking up on it, you can be assured that they're picking up on it. We've seen the impact, we've seen the results. At the same time, Google says, if you're using the content to write, you're using AI to write helpful content, that in and of itself is not going to disqualify you from ranking well. So we don't have specific guidelines around, is there a percentage of the content that can be kind of pure AI? Is there a frequency? We don't know. What I've seen more directly is that I've had a few customers of mine use AI to write the articles that my software is empowering them to do. They've seen immediate lifts followed by steady drops. And I think that's because, you know, the pillar-based marketing approach leads to that instant boost of authority, but once you start really comparing the AI-written content to what else is out there, it's pretty easily debunked as the most authoritative. So it's not clear-cut. I wish it was more clear-cut than that, but the evidence does suggest that for sure Google's gonna see it, and if you're thinking I can do this instead of writing something worthwhile, you're not gonna rank.
I agree. I think we forget sometimes, like especially when we do SEO, like behind a click, behind a keyword, it's a human, an actual human. So if the content is not valuable enough or it's not like catered to a human, you won't necessarily, like, you might rank, like the first few days, you might create like a bunch of content on bulk and you might see like rankings and impressions and might even see clicks. But as long as the user behavior starts kicking in, like clicks come in, you're probably going to see like the page is going to like drop, not only because Google detects it's AI, but also because users are not finding anything valuable from it. They're not staying long enough. They're going back to Google to get what they want. So you might see it rank for a while, but then it will just plummet since it's not adding value.
Agreed. We got 2 minutes, time for 1 or 2 more questions.
I would say one question, please. Quick question, quick answers.
All right, boss, 1 question.
All right, one quick question. So I think the general consensus here is that AI can create certain efficiencies, but certainly with certain limitations. And just like our human helpers, it is at its best when it's mentored and trained, and that takes time. Given all of that, what do you see as the future of AI? What is the trajectory?
First of all, thank you for summarizing this panel so eloquently. That was wonderful. I think the future is absolutely unknowable right now, because if we've seen this much change in the last 6 months, 5 years from now, I mean, I think efficiency is the place where there's the most potential. Like, I'm very much looking forward to a time in the next year or so where there's like a commercially available tool that'll help me as a true virtual assistant. It's possible, it's just not commercially accessible yet. So I think a lot of the like just crap we have to do in terms of like typing things to search for information, to find specific answers to questions, to email people, to ask questions, to line things up, I think a lot of that's going to start going away, and it's going to be scary at first, but then it's going to lead to a lot more people who used to do a lot of boring stuff getting to actually think creatively. And that's just very exciting for me, and I hope that's the future that we have in front of us.
Yeah. Agree.
Agreed.
All right, boss, 30
Thank
seconds
you.
early. Looks like we're done.
All right, yay. Thank you so much. Thank you, panel.